third year PhD student in Northwestern's interdisciplinary PhD in theater and drama. And here's a little roadmap for what I'm going to talk about today. I'm going to talk for a minute about my background. I'm going to talk about the evolution of Something Wicked, which is the project that I'm building. I'm going to talk about why it's a learning tool, and then I'm going to talk about the next steps for the project. And then I'll be done, and you can go back to eating cupcakes. So like I said, I'm a third year grad student, and I've been an English teacher before I came to Northwestern, in a public high school in the Midwest, in a private IB school on the Upper West Side, in a prison in the Bronx. I've also been a theater director in Birmingham, Alabama, and I've run a small independent film company in New York. And in my theater company in Birmingham, Alabama, we did a Shakespeare project at a restored blast furnace called Sloss. And this is a little tiny piece of Sloss Furnace's National Historic Landmark right here. This is literally like 1/20th of the whole landscape. And when we did Henry V, my Henry V, ran down this straightaway screaming, "God for Harry, England, and St. George," right while a freight train went by, right there where the active freight train line went, and a whole bunch of audience members ran after him, and it was pretty righteous. So I like to build things. I like to build things that are interactive, and I really like Shakespeare. So in addition to writing a dissertation for my program, I'm building a video game adaptation of William Shakespeare's Macbeth. It's called Something Wicked. It's named after my favorite line in the play, which is "By the pricking of my thumbs, something wicked this way comes." And I've been workshopping the concept for the last 2 years in classes and as part of the Segal Design Institute, where I was a fellow last year. And now I'm ready to build it with a programming team in Northwestern's data visualization office, and they actually come from the animation and video game industries, which is pretty exciting. So the game is a 3D, third-person perspective, pretty gory brawler that puts you in Macbeth's world. So it's a traditional video game in the sense that you play Macbeth and you fight a whole bunch of bad guys. And it's kind of really violent because the play is really violent. So you may be thinking, how is that a learning tool? Literacy expert James Paul G. has said that students learn content best when it's embodied through activities, decisions, and dialogue, like a video game. So video games as learning tools are already a part of a lot of STEM classrooms, but a corollary for teaching great works of literature hasn't really emerged. Is there anybody here who plays BioShock as a gamer? Okay, right on. But if you don't, this is a still from BioShock. And BioShock is actually a really good example of a kind of game that is called a railed narrative. So called because the narrative is on rails, like a train. There's a train motif tonight. But the narrative's on rails, and so you can't write your own BioShock narrative. It means more or less that the player has to make the decisions that the game wants you to make. So in BioShock, you can't get out of any given room or level until you've completed the objective that the game wants you to complete. And I know for the real BioShock fans, I'm kind of painting with a broad brush, but go with me. But contrast it then with like Grand Theft Auto, right? That franchise, you can pretty much wander around the world, do whatever you want, and there are a million different Grand Theft Auto narratives that each player writes for herself and her experience through the game. But there's only one grand BioShock narrative, and you learn it because the game forces you to learn it through its game mechanisms. So Something Wicked is kind of like that. You make the choices that Macbeth makes in the play, or you lose the game. So for example, when he kills Duncan, the king, major plot point, right? Macbeth gets told by the witches, "Oh, you're going to be the king," and he decides that that must mean that he should go and kill the current king. So he kills Duncan the king. And in the play, it happens while Duncan is sleeping, right? Macbeth walks in, Duncan's sleeping. And in the play, when you're staging the play, that has to happen really fast because the good guys, Macduff and Ross, are trying to get into the castle, and you hear them knocking during the whole scene, and Lady Macbeth panicking and freaking out about the knocking, and it's like my favorite scene to stage. But you read the play at home by yourself or in class, and you can take as much time as you want reading that scene, figuring out what it means. If you watch the movie or a live staged version, and it looks maybe like that actor who's playing Macbeth might be kind of anxious and running out of time, but it's not you. You're not running out of time in that moment. So in Something Wicked, the video game, this moment is dramatized as a really scary maze that you're playing to get to Duncan's chamber. And it's timed. And you finally get to the king's chamber, and you think, oh, maybe it's going to be a big boss battle, because like in Mario, you wall down the maze, and then there's the door, and then you go behind the door. But in Something Wicked, there's a sleeping king doing nothing, and looking kind of sweet and angelic, and like Lady Macbeth says, kind of like her dad. And if you hesitate in the game, even for a second, you lose. Ross and Macduff get in, discover you, fight you, kill you, game over, press A to play again. And when you experience the whole play like that, when you do what the play does or you lose, when you win because you did what Macbeth did, you had your best friend killed in front of his kid. You had your enemy's wife and kids slaughtered in their own home. You had your own head cut off and paraded around by the good guys, all of which, just FYI, happens on stage in the play. When you, the player, are pressing the buttons on the controller that make your on-screen representation enact all those really awful plot points, okay, first of all, you're going to remember that play. Mostly because you had to play it wrong 1,500 times and lose before you finally figured out the right way the game wanted you to move through the levels, or because you went back to the text and you looked for the key for how to win. Second, you're going to have a whole new embodied level of critical thinking about Macbeth as a character, about the major play themes of free will, of fate. And third, you're going to hear the language in a new way. And that's because we don't use all of the language, but all of the language we do use comes only from the text. For example, the timer on that maze part of the game is the audio of an actor doing the "Is this a dagger I see before me" monologue. You finish before he finishes the monologue. And all the creatures that you fight come from the lines in the play, which happily are super descriptive. So like chasing you through the maze are Pale Hecate's offerings and withered murder alarmed by his sentinel the wolf, who howls his watch. And thus with his stealthy pace, with Tarquin's ravishing strides, towards his design moves like a ghost. But most important to me, you're going to own a little piece of Macbeth. That was you, just for a minute. And let me tell you a secret. It's kind of what it feels like to be on stage. So from a scholarly point of view, that similarity of enacting a role on stage and enacting a canonical role in a video game format, that's super interesting to me. So academics, like myself, we like to talk about ontology, which is, again, broad brushing this, a philosophical inquiry into the nature of becoming or existence or being. It's a really slippery term, so just like go forth and use it with caution. But if you think about the ontology of dramatic literature, of a play, you can ask, what makes a play a play? How do you know it's a play, not a book? What is the ontology of dramatic literature? One of my favorite academic books right now is by Shakespeare scholar Margaret Jane Kidney, and it's called Shakespeare and the Problem of Adaptation. And she writes about the fuzzy shifting boundaries between a performance and an adaptation of a work of Shakespeare. So like the difference between, oh, that's a performance of Hamlet, that's definitely Hamlet, but this over here is not really Hamlet so much as it is an adaptation of Hamlet. How we negotiate which is which is the subject of her inquiry. So tell all the new 140-2 freshmen that if they take my section, they're getting a little Margaret Jane Kidney. But crucial to her argument is that this shifting ground of what counts as any given work relies equally on the text and the performance. So she says, quote, "It is through recourse to an insubstantial idea of the work of art that stands apart from and bridges both text and performance that it's possible to explain how non-dramatic literature differs from drama. instead of the text itself coming to stand in place of the work, with performance assuming a second-order adaptive relation as a performance of the text, performance and text are both in their different ways instances of the work. Basically, until someone puts up the play, however low budget, that thing is not yet a play. Its ontology relies on the action of putting it up. So guess what else is like that? Video games. One of the earliest bona fide video game theorists, Alexander Galloway, writes about how action defines the ontology of video games. Quote, "If photographs are images and films are moving images, then video games are actions. Without action, games remain only in the pages of an abstract rulebook. Without the active participation of players and machines, video games exist only as static computer code. Video games come into being when the machine is powered up and the software is executed. They exist when enacted." So great. You have two things that are alike, video games and theater. Yay. Who cares? Lots of things are alike. A tin can and the Hubble telescope, both round and silver, but nobody's getting any insights into the human condition because of that comparison. Actually, that probably is a humanities dissertation somewhere. But my point is this. When we use the tools, academic and of industry, of a new medium like video games, to look at an old object of study like a Shakespeare play, we get fresh insights into both. Maybe this new thing of video games is not so new after all. And maybe there's still something important to learn from this old thing that we thought we knew everything about. And maybe as a part of that conversation, more people get interested. And maybe it becomes an invitation to engage, to build something together that people can use. Which brings me back to the classroom. Back to the learning tool of something wicked. Back to the high school class that maybe is kind of meh about Shakespeare. So that average American high school class, watching its art classes and its music classes and its drama classes disappear, watching its field trips getting replaced by testing, watching its teachers get overloaded with curriculum requirements from the district. Let me stop for just a second and make something crystal clear. I am a theater artist. Of course, my first choice for igniting the average American high school student's passion for Shakespeare would be to send an army of actors and directors into every school and workshop a play for 6 weeks. That's my first choice. I am not suggesting that video games are a replacement for theater. I am suggesting that there are foundational similarities. And I'm looking for a way to leverage those similarities into a practical application that can help teachers and students in the current educational climate. So until I wake up in the alternate reality of unlimited theater funding, the sense of enactment and ownership that a student can get from being Macbeth in a video games, maybe not so bad. And that sense of ownership over something that for a lot of kids previously had an insurmountably high barrier to comprehension or provoked an immediate shutdown, which I've seen as a director and a teacher, of blah, boring, don't get it too hard, bigger than me. Maybe that sense of control of playing a video game, maybe it opens the door just a little bit. Maybe you do get Shakespeare. Maybe you can master hard things. And that realization, that empowerment in a classroom, as an educator, I can do a lot with.